Welcome. Welcome to the Israel Association of Writers in English and our celebration of new books. This is the first of a series because everybody's been producing books lately that have not been publicized because we're all in isolation somewhere. I'm Karen Alkalay-Gut, chair of the IAWE, and I'm happy to kick off the first of this series of readings with members and honorary members. And tonight we're celebrating three or four new books. We'll see. And I'd like to begin with Judy Lev. Judy Lev.
Yes.
Yes, Judy Lev. I want to celebrate two books at first. Her first two books, both published within the past 2 years. The first one, Our Names Do Not Appear, that's published by Linus Books. It's published, it's a memoir about the legacy of silenced childhood grief. And her second book, published by She Writes Press in the US, is available for pre-order, and it's called Bethlehem Road, Stories of Immigration and Exile. Judy's well known around here for her many imaginative workshops and her active participation in the literary scene. So she'll be introducing primarily her book that's coming out, which is always more exciting than the one that was written before, right? To the author, at least. Judy, let's take
Okay, thank you so much, Karen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to thank you so much, Karen, for including me in this distinguished group. I want to talk about process because process is, well, you'll understand why. This book, Our Names Do Not Appear, which came out in 2023, it took me nearly 40 years to write, which sounds insane, right? I'm just saying it, I'm exhausted. It started in 1982 when I had a flashback when my third child, a baby boy, was sick and he was hospitalized, and I was convinced he was going to die. And I had this flashback to the time in 1950 when my mother's third child, a boy, actually died. And it became a secret in the family. So from between 1982 and 2023, when the book was published, I was obsessed about this period in my life. And
Judy,
started writing
Judy,
about
may
it.
I interrupt for a
Yes.
moment? Judy, your mic is not perfect. Can you adjust it somehow? It's almost perfect.
You know what?
It's got a back. It's got
an echo.
I don't know how.
Yeah.
Oh,
As if you're using two mics.
I'm not using two mics. I'm using a tablet, which is fairly new, which I don't have a whole lot of experience with. Should I go to the computer and do that instead, where I have more control? I mean, I have no idea how to control the mic from here.
We are very good at chatting away when and talking about you when you're not here. So if you want to get off and get on, we'll wait for you. Okay.
Okay. Okay, might take a while. Okay, so as I was saying, were you in the middle of a joke, Karen?
No. No.
Okay. So this book took me, oh, now you can't see it too well. Anyway, Our Names Do Not Appear. So I started writing it in 1982. And I had one version, it was fiction by 1989. And then I had another version in 2000, which was nonfiction, partnered with pilgrimage narrative that I read from the 5th century on, because I thought what I was doing was an internal pilgrimage, and I sort of contrasted that with the external pilgrimages of those pilgrims who came to the Holy Land throughout the centuries. So that was another version. And then by 2013, I said, Judy, just write the story. And I had a room of my own by then, so it was much easier to do. And once I had a structure, once the structure came to me, then I was able to put in all these various genres together. So it became a hybrid memoir. And during this time, I was also writing other things. Among them were stories about Bethlehem Road. Let's see. Oh, in the other room, I left my clock and my notes. I'll just wing this. So in 2005, I was a student in the fiction track of the Shane D. Rudolph Graduate Program in Creative Writing at Bar-Ilan University. And my mentor, who was Alan Hoffman, explained to us that we needed a theme of a story collection. So it took me a nanosecond to come up with the idea of Derech Bethlehem, of Bethlehem Road, because I had just left Jerusalem for the Moshav of Beit Zayit, which is all of a half a kilometer from Jerusalem. But I felt I was totally in Galut, and it took me 5 years to get over leaving Bethlehem Road and Baca, this wonderful neighborhood in South Jerusalem. So I decided that I would write short stories that all the stories take place on Bethlehem Road, and all the protagonists live in a different house on Bethlehem Road. By 2008, an agent.
Read the stories. Read the stories.
The stories in this book,
Yeah.
there are 12 stories. I'm not going to read them. I'm going to tell you about them and raise your teavon, your appetite for ordering the book and reading the stories. But I want to talk about how I got excited about the book again, because when I originally wrote the book, I thought the order would be as the address is on the street, so would be the order of the stories in the book. But then I put all the stories in front of me, and I had 12 stories, and I realized that they were divided into different life chapters, kind of. There were 3 stories about young people in their 20s who came to Jerusalem and, you know, had their life-changing moment. And then there were another 3 stories of those who came to Jerusalem and wanted to settle down. So there was a story about buying a home on Derech Bethlehem and the first pregnancy in Jerusalem, and the wedding in Jerusalem. And the third part of the book is made up of 3 stories about family life, the family lives of immigrants to Baca, to Bethlehem Road. And then the last part was dispersion. Actually, the first story I wrote was in 1990, and it appeared in the Kenyan Review, much to my shock. And that became the last story in the collection. It's called Dispersion. And as I looked at the themes running through the life cycle, I realized that the whole process of immigration, well, first I learned that you're always an immigrant. You know, once an immigrant, always an immigrant. It's not something that you get over after 3 years, you know, when your rights are up or whatever. And I learned when I was
volunteering in an old age home on Bethlehem Road. And I noticed that all the people were talking about their strongest memories were those when they were 8, 9, or 10 years old, living in either in Germany or in Holland or wherever. And these were people who had contributed much to the country and had high positions in the Ministry of Education and social welfare. But the memories that they kept that were strongest to them were their memories from their childhoods. I guess it's no surprise there. I had also once met a man who was guarding the beach at Kibbutz Ginosar, where I volunteered when I was in 1966. And he was one of the first fishermen on the Sea of Galilee after 2,000 years. But what was he thinking about that day? He was thinking about his father's Sandlaria, a shoe repair shop in Pinsk, and how he would hang out with his father there in Pinsk. And I was just like, here is this, to me, it was such a hero to be the first fisherman, since the times of Jesus. But for him, his head and his memories were in Pinsk. So, and I see it was much easier than for me also to accept the role of immigrant. And also, I understood that I sort of identified with my grandmother, because my grandmother, who was from Hungary, lived with us, and she was an immigrant. And then I became an immigrant, just like my grandmother, in Israel. So, but I see the immigration is also part of a cycle of with exile. It's kind of a circular that sometimes over generations, like we came to Israel, but many of our children will be leaving or have left, or and depending also having come from the States or England or Canada, where we have the choice of getting up and leaving, and the choice of staying every day is unlike the immigrants who came certainly after World War II and from the North Africa. They're not as free to go back to places as we were when we came. Anyway, so I saw this sort of cyclical chain between immigration and exile or dispersion, which is sort of the softer word for exile. So I don't know how many of you know the Baca neighborhood. It was built by Christian Arabs and Armenians from the old city. Well, the Christian Arabs were from Bethlehem, the Armenians from the old city. They started building it in the late 1890s after the railroad to Jerusalem was completed in 1898. And they were well-to-do families that built beautiful homes, family homes, 1 or 2 floors with large gardens and orchards around them. And they also built buildings for rental housing. The architecture was very beautiful, and it was a strictly Arab neighborhood. Well, one of their inspirations was the neighborhood of Talpiot, which was a garden community created, of course, for Jews. So in 1948, they had a push and pull. I mean, the push was from the soldiers in the Haganah, who sort of kicked them out. And then the pull was that the leaders of the Arab countries who were attacking Palestine said, come to Ramallah for a while, you'll be back in a week, there won't be any Jews left there. So they left their homes, and these are beautiful homes, and they were empty for about a year or two. During 49 and 50, there were mabarot set up in the area. And then in 51, the Jewish Agency started giving the families, the refugee families, really from North Africa and also from Romania and Yugoslavia. They kind of dished out apartments to these people. So you would have two families living in 100 square meters, and there were like 10 people there living together. But by the late 1970s, no, the early 1970s,
Okay.
Amidar had sold the apartments to the people, and then they were able to resell them. And
Judy, we have a time limit, and I think that afterwards we're going to have questions, so that I think we could, if you can give us the address of where to get that book.
Oh, okay. Well, wherever you buy your books, you know, if it be it Bookshop or Amazon or Barnes and Noble. There'll be some stores on Bethlehem Road that will be selling it. It comes out officially on October 21st. And you can, if you're coming from the States, you go to your local bookstore, independent bookstore preferably, and ask them to order the book. It's being distributed by Simon and Schuster in the States and in England.
Say
So
the,
it's
say the name
available.
of the book again. Say the name of the book again.
Bethlehem Road, Stories of Immigration and Exile.
Well, it sounds fascinating, and we're looking forward. But I think there's going to be a lot of questions at the end, but I want to make
Okay.
sure that we have time for Helen and Alicia, and to at least see the end of the moon. We'll see. We'll see. But now I want to introduce Helen. Helen Motro, Helen Schary Motro, is an American writer and attorney living in Israel. Her award-winning writing spans the gamut of opinion journalism in the world's leading press. Motro is recipient of the Common Ground Award for Journalism in the Middle East. She taught law at Tel Aviv University and was a columnist for the Jerusalem Post. She's the author of the nonfiction Maneuvering Between the Headlines from Other Press, and the collection of short fiction, The Right to Happiness After All They Went Through, that's published by Amsterdam Publishers. And her short stories, poetry, and essays appear in anthologies and magazines. Helen, do you want to show us that book?
Sure, sure. Thank you so much, Karen, for inviting me and having me participate in this really exciting introductory evening. And I'm really happy to follow Judy's erudite introduction for her book. My book is a collection of short stories. It's each protagonist is a Holocaust survivor or a child of survivors, or sometimes both in one story. All of my stories take place at the end of the war, not during the Holocaust. And really, they are about how the Holocaust affected the generation who went through it and the generation afterwards. All 11 stories are distinct and linked only by a common theme: how people overcome trauma, trauma lived, or trauma inherited. Some of them are able to embrace life, but other of them continue to internalize their personal catastrophe and pain. And the title itself expresses the dual themes that I just mentioned. On the one hand,
Where's the book?
here's the book. Do you see it? You see
No,
it?
yes.
Okay. uh, on the one hand, rebuilding life, the right to happiness. And on the other hand, after all they went through, the effects of a painful past. And sometimes these are combined in the same story and even in the same character. So I'd like to highlight a few of the stories and read a few excerpts. In the first story, called The Smoker, Anna, a little girl in New York, she collects half-smoked cigarette butts in ashtrays that are left after her parents have parties. So she goes to the living room in the morning before they get up, and she collects these cigarette butts, what people used to smoke, and she takes them and hides them in a toy chest in her room. And then she emulates the elegant grandmother whom she has been told smoked in the opera in pre-war Krakow, holding an ivory cigarette holder. It's a very glamorous past that she's imagining. And in secret, she takes out her cigarettes and she pretends to smoke, and she looks in the mirror. But she fears to be discovered, and one day she is discovered. And it's then that she learns the real truth about her grandmother's addiction and her terrible death in the ghetto. Another story, called Korchak's Boys, highlights the dilemma of Gideon, who is the son of a survivor. Gideon is the principal of a reform school in the Negev. He emulates his hero, Janusz Korczak, the great Polish educator. And he keeps a portrait of Korczak on his wall. Like Korczak, Gideon believes in his boys, even though they all have violence in their pasts. And he takes his juvenile offenders on a memory trip to a German concentration camp. Gideon has rehabilitated these boys, but will these former delinquents justify his faith in them, or will he fail? The King of Yiddish is a completely different story. It's a more optimistic story. It centers on a former Yiddish actor. In pre-war Vilna, Sali plays classical theater, including Shakespeare, and he's due to open in Hamlet on the eve of the war. But then the war breaks out, and of course, everything falls apart. He survived with his wife, but they lose their little son, Horatio Mordechai. Sally and his wife moved to the Bronx. They can't find work. He can't find work. He goes to night school. He finds English very difficult. He can't become an actor. Finally, he lands a job that he loves. He becomes a radio announcer for a Yiddish radio station, and he works there for 30 years. But what will happen once Yiddish starts disappearing? One day, the manager calls him into the office and tells him that the station has been sold to new corporate owners. So this is when he's in the office. Don't lose your head, Sally, he cautions himself. He raises himself on his chair and sticks out his chin like before a big speech. So, when do I get to meet them, the new bosses, he says. Let me explain something, Sally, Adele says. Something basic about economics. The bottom line of a radio station is revenue, not literature, not nostalgia, not charity, revenue. There's just no more sponsorship left for Yiddish. None. Sorry, my friend. Times change. Our listeners speak Russian, Vietnamese, and above all Spanish. Sally feels the axe falling. But he is a survivor, and Sally reinvents himself once again. Sometimes I'm asked, are these characters real? Are they based on real people? People read the stories and they think that these are people in my past. Not at all. All of them are fictional. There is no Malka Shulamis. There is no Mordechai Taubman. There is no Hilda Gruenstein. But there are people like them. It's not really a surprise that I chose to write a book about the Holocaust, because I myself am a child of survivors and I grew up with Holocaust survivors. All my parents' friends came from Europe. My life had many other facets, but the influence of the Holocaust was really large. I was surrounded by Holocaust secrets, Holocaust stories, and Holocaust hints. When I was writing these stories, I felt that it was important to be faithful to history and geography so I'd win the trust of the readers. And so, for example, I checked very well the Brooklyn and the Bronx subway system and then the lineup of stops one after the other. And for my story, Homecoming on Riverside, I made sure of the paths in Riverside Park and the layout of the streets on the Upper West Side. In that story, a little girl is so lonely that she fantasizes her murdered grandparents back to life, and she meets them in the park. I also got materials and ideas from my parents. When there were fireworks on Independence Day, my mother never went to see them. Firework explosions reminded her of bombardments of Warsaw, which she had lived through. She had an instinctive, fearful body reaction to any loud noise, and I incorporated my mother's fear into the story called The Parade, which is about a little girl whose life was very different from mine. Malka Shalamis's parents hardly speak English. They hold menial jobs, and she's a charity student at a religious girls' yeshiva in Brooklyn. But her mother also jumps whenever the doorbell rings. Malka Shalamis watches TV and dreams of becoming more American. And this is the beginning of the story called The Parade. Television was my refuge. Every afternoon, I plopped down on our leatherette ottoman, avoiding the scratchy tears in the vinyl, watching our black and white TV set, and eating handfuls of frosted flakes dry out of the package. The programs pictured perfect American families, and I willed myself into the action. I became the child playing Chinese checkers in the den on the slip-covered couch, running outside to buy a popsicle from the ice cream truck, dressing up on Halloween, none of which existed in my real life. I also took ideas from history. So I knew that before World War II and leading up to the war and during it, the US policy severely restricted allowing in refugees from Europe. In the title story called The Right to Happiness, a German Jewish mother and her daughter have to leave Berlin, and they have to wait in Cuba for 2 years before they get a visa to the United States. And when she comes to the United States, Hilda has no English. Her first months are very bitter. She works in a German Jewish newspaper called Aufbau in New York, which really did exist, and she composes ads searching for relatives who have been lost in the war. Hilda adapts, and she becomes the archetypical well-to-do German Jewish Manhattanite. And then comes 1967 and the Six-Day War. And this is the beginning of The Right to Happiness. When Nasser began to strut and menace Israel in the spring of 1967, Hilda was unprepared for her high-strung reaction. Suddenly, she felt an astonishing interest in Palestina and a growing hysteria worrying about its existence. Palestina, that's how her father and mother used to refer to Israel when she was growing up in Germany, and she still thought about it this way. Hilda lost her taste for matinees. She neglected to pick up her alligator handbag in repair for its broken clasp, even though Mr. Scaparetti called her 3 times to remind her it was ready. Every morning Hilda awoke, fearing to hear that while she slept, little Israel had been wiped off the map. She rushed to turn on the radio before preparing her coffee. She pored over news reports and commentaries in the Times. She flipped through the television channels searching for coverage. As the days passed, one word began to repeat itself over and over. It beat drum-like in her head: war, war, war. She found herself concentrating on faraway personalities whose names she had just learned. A retiring fellow named Levi Eshkol headed the State of Israel. Roly-poly and balding, he looked as harmless and ineffectual as an aging schoolteacher. Eshkol reminded her of Hindenburg in the Germany of her youth, that aging leader hoodwinked by Hitler. She learned to pronounce the names of others, like pirate knight like Moshe Dayan, a one-eyed general appointed to head the Israeli army. The papers sang his praises, although he appeared too extravagant and swashbuckling for Hilda's taste. The news showed lean, tight-lipped men striding in rocky fields, diplomats ducking in and out of limousines, and spokesmen delivering curt communiques in heavy accents. One person, though, was head and shoulders above everyone else. When she first heard that bell-like British voice and elegant phrases, Hilda was not sure of whom she was hearing. An eminent Jew from Great Britain, a member of the British Parliament, an advisor to the Queen? It turned out that the beautiful voice, with its eloquent defense of Israel, emanated not from London, but from Jerusalem, from the heart of its government. Despite his bizarre foreign name, Foreign Minister Abba Eban was an Israeli who spoke like a member of the British royal family. She heard him in broadcasts from Jerusalem, his voice strong, clear, and mellifluous above the static of the radio. Yeah, he is the new Churchill, Hilda told her friend Margaret, who nodded in agreement. Another story was inspired by the true story of the philosopher Hannah Arendt, and I created an affair of a young Jewish student in Germany and her lifelong connection and obsession with a cruel Nazi professor. Sometimes surprising personal experiences also furnished material. Once I went with my husband for a little mini 3 days to Rhodes, and I expected a vacation magical Greek island, which it really was. But then I came in the town upon a memorial, and I learned about the massacre of the Greek Jews. In Rhodes, there had been a continuous Jewish presence for 2,000 years. Since the Maccabees, Jews had lived on Rhodes. But then when the Nazis arrived there in 1943, they deported all the Jews from Rhodes to Athens in a boat. There was very little water, and many of them perished, most of them. And then the ones that survived were transported straight to Auschwitz, and most of them died from Rhodes. I created a story of a life-affirming man called Shmulik Capelouto. And I chose the name Capelouto because that was one of the family names that was listed on the memorial in the real Rhodes. Shmulik personifies rejuvenation. He's a taxi driver of a beat-up cab in Rehovot, and he listens to beautiful Latino music, and he moonlights on a tractor, and he's picking oranges. Shmulik adopts a lonely mother and her crippled child, and he shows them the magic and the fragrance of the orange groves. This story, I think, is aptly named The Love of the Land. After I put them down on paper, the characters that I created, that I've mentioned some of them, they no longer belong to me. They take on a life of their own, and they take their place in the real world, I hope, among us. Ostensibly, my book is about Holocaust survivors and their children, but it's really about all of us in the human condition, about seeking truth, about how to reconcile our past with our present. The great short story writer Sherwood Anderson said of fiction, "The whole glory of writing lies in the fact that it forces us out of ourselves and into the lives of others." I hope that's what my stories achieve. Thank you so much for allowing me to share them with you.
Thank you so much, Helen. And I'll be looking for this book because I too am a Holocaust survivor.
And you can buy it via Amazon or Barnes & Noble online, also Kindle, and also in print, hardcover and paperback. So here it is.
Thank you. And there'll be questions afterwards. But first, we have one other modest poet. I don't know how to begin here, how to introduce Alicia Ostriker. Throughout the years, almost every book or of prose or poetry written by her has affected my own concept of what poetry is. From her then forbidden issues of women in literature, in women writing like a woman and stealing the language, she opened paths to my own writing, to my own reading, to just about everything that I could imagine. There was her poetry took at that time subjects that were previously scorned by contemporary critics. I remember them one by one, even friends of mine, Alfred Kazin, Christopher Lehman, how these critics that destroyed women's poetry as often as they could. These poems that Alicia wrote in the 70s marked a distinct shift in American poetry. They centered the female in the context of a violent patriarchal society. And in the intertwining of her own poetry with objective literary criticism about the period of Plath, Sexton, and Rich, and others made this shift defiant and clear. Soon after that, she developed her feminism to encompass religion. To encompass religion by rereading the Bible from the point of view of women. Her books of explanation, her midrashim, seem an obvious but brilliant development. And all of her 7 books of poetry that followed in that period led the zeitgeist of poetry. Each one described a new stage in her life and always gave me a new way to look at life and literature. But I have to admit, I was afraid to read her latest book. I was afraid that this terrible period that we've all gone through would be reflected in this book, and that there would be no hope left. Even though she declared that poets thrive on disaster, born as we are within the wound. There's a resistance to complex language, a hunger for simple truth, for familiar nature. Surrounded by fear, by transience, the pull is toward the voice demanding, I choose life. I'm very proud to present her and honored that she's consented to join us today. Alicia, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for asking me to be part of this group today. Of course, none of you will guess that Karen and I have been good friends for about 50 years, something like that.
What can I say?
And I have been learning from her. She has been learning from me. She is a treasure of a writer, in my view, and I hope you all know her work as a performer and as a writer, as a poet, and as someone with a sense of humor who has now transferred her sense of humor to her ChatGPT, as I just learned. She's a great writer and a great person, and I'm very pleased to be invited by her. And the book, this is a new book. It's called The Holy and Broken Bliss, Poems in Plague Time. And Plague Time in this book, it just came out last October 24, and you can get it from Amazon and from Alice James Books. And I don't know where else. Poems in Plague Time, and the Plague Time in this book, I was writing it mostly from 2020 to 22. So the Plague Time is the virus, and it's also the illness of the society that I was living in America. And you may feel that your society is in a state of illness too. I can't say, because why can't I say? Because I told myself, don't say anything about Israel on this show. my society, USA, has been in a state of illness, and that comes up in this book also. And I'm in my 80s, I'm declining. My husband was declining. Facing what happens after decline, that's in the book too. So threaded through the book is a long marriage and the troubles of our world. So yes, and the title is The Holy and Broken Bliss, Poems in Plague Time. So here's the start. These Be the Words is the opening, sort of a prefatory poem, and that's the Hebrew title of Deuteronomy, which is about endings. The words of an old woman shuffling the cards of her own decline, the decline of her husband, the decline of her nation, the plague-smitten world. Virus that has slain its millions, rage and despair driving the body politic into violent writhings, knotted upheavings, drama I watch from the wings, telling myself, these too are the wings of the Shekhinah beneath which I arise and shower, dress in the morning, undress at night in my house of many doors, many windows, little sky, song reversed to clanging, alarm, alarm. Write if you can find words, I tell myself. Write what you are afraid to write. Lay down your cards. Step over the lintel through that door. Write or die. And I started doing this book after a long and unpleasant period of writer's block. And then the poems started coming. But I have to confess, the last words of this poem, Write or Die, I lifted from a poet hero of mine, the poet H.G., whom I recommend to you all, Hilda Doolittle, who went by those initials given to her by Ezra Pound, H.G. And her last book of poetry is called Hermetic Definition. She's an old lady writing it, and she says to herself, write or die. So I say it to myself. Okay. Time. Time goes by, day trailing day. It passes me by and somehow fades like a stealthy black cat, like an old scar, like a recently cleaned express subway car lit up boldly inside. There it goes, loudly clacking, gradually passing the local subway car covered with graffiti, in which I sit sighing, watching golden windowed time slide by. Both trains move. One moves faster. Wait up! No. Okay, so then there's the virus, and we're all confined to our apartments and masks. And this is called Plague Time Ritual 1. We no longer leave the apartment. We cook or order in and eat amply together. I make a pleasing borscht, he a pleasing French onion soup. Together we dance the long married kitchen dance. He is slowly, steadily losing weight. He jokes that he will not die. He will grow smaller and smaller until I can carry him around in a teacup, exhibit him to my friends. And this is Plague Time Ritual 2. I don't know how you all coped in Israel with the plague. So many plagues, on and on. Plague Time Ritual 2. As I daily wipe each piece of mail with Clorox before opening to protect myself from the virus, I wish I could wipe myself clean of envy, of anger, symptoms of another lifelong contagious illness. I don't believe in original sin. So what in hell is it? Infecting me year after year, traveling through space in bullets of resentment, greed, terror, blood, wounded. How cleanse? How heal? Uh, yeah. Summer. And this, I think, was the summer of 2021. And this is about the condition of America, but it could be other places. It is summer still, hot sun, trees heavy with foliage, loud birds in the shrubbery hiding from hawks, neglected towers collapsing, and the plagues of poverty and addiction and despair, and the attack of the invisible against a temple here or there, white stone gone dead. What am I to make of all this beauty and all this sorrow? Please just act like normal, like everything will be okay. Please trust the system, say the system managers. From nowhere, a woman, nameless, stands up shouting, "Watch out for the angels! They despise you. There they go, flying over you, heading for the coast, coughing garbage into the atmosphere above you." So what I'm thinking about is mid America. The coast was still getting along okay. Mid America was experiencing the plagues of poverty, addiction, despair, and they thought that the people on the two coasts didn't care about them, which was true. And when I say watch out for the angels, they despise you. I'm thinking about William Blake's angels in The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, who are full of smug superiority, as we were on two coasts, about those people in the middle of the country. And what was flying over the coast, coughing garbage into the atmosphere, that was also Boeing 747s. And I guess many people are accustomed to planes coughing garbage into their atmosphere. Only the garbage in their case is bombs. Evening in plague time. We hand ourselves over to the media. The media hands us over to profit. We are not what we were. We will not be what we are. We are possessed. We no longer even yell at the news. Okay, two poems, one short, one longer, about what happens to the people who are the other in my country. Haiku. In one sorry blink, the black man killed by the cop fills the white pavement. And a longer poem on the same topic is Nocturne. And this is from a video that I actually watched the whole thing. Nocturne. A man sleeps in his car in the fast food parking lot. A cop knocks on his window. The man is passive as a peony, gets out of the car, hands over his papers without complaint, does the breathalyzer quietly, then the cop leans over the man's ear, begins to arrest him. Parking lot lights cast a cindery gleam on the naked speckled asphalt. The video camera stares. Suddenly the man fights like a tiger, struggles free, runs, is shot, dies. We wonder, was it the handcuffs drove the man mad like that, or something else? Can we guess what word the cop whispered into that black man's ear that night? It's the N word that we're not supposed to say, but the cop maybe said it into that black man's ear and it drove him crazy. And then he died. Double plague. Thanks to the virus, every breath we breathe, we risk inhaling a death. And the other plague continues tweeting its hate, oiling its weapons. All that year. And this was later. And I don't know if you follow the elections in my country. All that year. We were body surfing a wave of public venom, attempting to swim. It was terrific, thrilling. Hate sprayed us on the left and on the right. We wondered, would it smash us into a reef? On screen, our swaggering leader, man we elected, loosed lies from his lips like eels. It was a good moment for cartoonists and journalists and billionaires and lovers of guns. A good moment for poets. Poets thrive on disaster, born as we are within the wound. Oh, okay, and this poem is called Elul, which, are we in Elul now? You guys, are we in Elul? Okay, so this was earlier Elul. I am climbing a wet, slippery rock face. I have no gear. Can't see to the top or the bottom. Looking around, I observe many other climbers clinging to the same wet rock. I was standing at the shallow end of a wading pool, splashing like a kindergartner, and now I enjoy watching my quiet pink feet against the turquoise and pearly, pebbly concrete of the pool floor. How strange old age has brought me here. I greet the trees in the park. They return my greeting courteously. I have to tell you, this is a poem with many little sections, and this is the section that has the primary joke in the book. I greet the trees in the park. They return my greeting courteously. I say to my husband, I am convinced the trees are sentient beings. He replies, I bet they make the same mistake about you. Ovid knew trees are people, demons live in oaks. At midnight, sycamores strip. When we pray to the spirit of the trees inquire, can we pray for the hidden women of Afghanistan, for the rubble-housed children of Haiti, for the boys in brilliant sneakers shooting each other in the morning news, and for the murdered journalists here and there? So all I can say is that this poem was written before October 7th, or the list would be much longer. Now that the sycamores are losing their leathery leaves, now that the rainforests are up in smoke, like the drinkers of black milk in Poland, now that I still cannot divest myself of anger and envy, my personal sins, whose is the voice demanding I choose life? And this is called At the Center. At the Center for Disease Control. They are not slackers. They work like beavers. Science, the hero, fights the virus. The virus ducks and weaves. The dying keep trying to breathe. The bereaved surrender in tears. Mama Gaia remains unappeased, walking up and down on earth. We have all insulted her. She will have her revenge. Yes, that is how she thinks. Mama Gaia, you better beware a woman, a mother, wronged, humiliated. Better believe she will do anything within her power to retaliate. What if she too considers suicide? Now I have to tell you, my husband read this book, or at least part of it, and the line that says that Mama Gaia will have her revenge, uh, he crossed it out. He crossed out will in the will have and wrote at the bottom is having. Mama Gaia is having her revenge. Raise your hand, all who believe that. I do. Okay. Okay. This one is funny. Helpmate. In my dream, when I murmur, I won't be able to live without you, he gallantly replies, yes, you will. In real life, he would say he worries about me. Who will fix my computer when it goes on strike again? And I panic. Who will do the complicated financial logistics? Who will stop me from carelessly setting the house on fire? So far, so good.
We want your last poem before so that we can ask questions.
It is almost the last poem. I'll get to the end now. The end is all about getting ready to die and having a sort of a conversation with the Shekinah. And she says, they say, the water rushing through darkness, the spark rushing through darkness. Go ahead, dive on in, beloved. They say there are as many neurons in your head as galaxies in the universe. Breathe in the aroma of the cave, the water rushing through darkness, the spark floating through darkness. Go ahead, dive in with the discarded things, beloved. Breathe in the aroma of the cave. They say there are more neurons in your head than stars in the Milky Way. Go ahead, dive in. And here's the coda. Let my poems be shards of the holy and broken bliss start over. Start over. Let my
Yeah.
poems be shards of the holy and broken bliss that circles and shackles the earth. Great. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you all. Thank you, Alicia.
Yeah.
We have a few minutes to to hear from all of you exactly where you can get these books. These books are quite remarkable, all three. And we've managed to somehow avoid talking about politics. I don't know how, but we have, and we can ask. But now, who knows what will happen? What questions will be asked? Do you have?
Said
Do you want to? Does anyone want to begin with this? When I get started, I can't stop. So you want to take over first, Mike?
Yeah, I was just wondering, first of all three of you were brilliant, and it was a pleasure listening to everything. And I've written down the titles, and I will purchase them and read them. Incredible evening. But what I wanted to ask is, not in Israel so much, but in the United States, where you've published, have you faced the BDS type of movement, or have you been fortunate in that area?
wait,
What
have I faced what?
the BDS, boycott, divest, and yeah, in other words,
Oh,
the
it
cold
exists, but
shoulder of the publishers. Yeah.
it, it it exists, but I'm not a member of it.
No,
There are
you're
many
not,
things
but
that exist. There are many things that exist that I cannot do anything about and don't pay much attention to.
but you haven't faced problems publishing.
Have
Or you
I
have.
faced? Not in the least, no.
Great.
I do understand that there is a lot of anti-Semitism now in America. This is true. There is. It's increasing. But I have not experienced it myself.
It's great.
Maybe I will.
I hope not.
You might want to ask Mike. You might want to ask the other writers who are, well, Judy, do you identify yourself as an Israeli, and do you publish as an Israeli writing about Bethlehem Road? You have to unmute yourself.
I identify as an American Israeli. And I'm sort of nervous about going to the States. I've organized a 5-week book tour from coast to coast, but I made sure that I would be doing it either in a Jewish venue or a bookstore where I know some people and I'll feel more protected.
Helen?
I would echo what Judy said. I think things have changed a lot here. I'm in the United States for a month now, and I hadn't been here for a whole year. And even though when I was here last year, it was after October 7th, and there were lots of demonstrations and protests against Israel, but things have deteriorated so much further now in the United States. I personally haven't encountered any issues, but I keep a low profile. I took my yellow ribbon off my handbag, although I have a yellow ribbon in the banister outside. I wouldn't dare to like go into like real public spaces. I echo what Judy said. I would go into protected Jewish spaces if I had a public reading.
See, thank you. And the
Would
question was directed to all three, but Alicia answered first. Yeah. Thank you for your answers.
I'd just like to mention also, I live in Canada, and it's not only in the United States. We are seeing the most outrageous things happening here in Canada in terms of support for Hamas and Hezbollah, in terms of anti-Semitism. It's absolutely hair-raising.
What part
Horrific.
of Canada are you in? Where,
I'm in the capital, Ottawa.
uh,
It's unbelievable what's going on here.
Mm.
So, just to add that.
So
Thank you.
I, you know, I don't follow the war as all of you must do, but I do every few days read Haaretz, and I don't know if any of you see a path out.
Oh, yes. I think that we see the different paths. There are many possibilities. Not all of them viable, not all of them good. Some of them very frightening. Many of them very frightening, but we do see paths out. I don't know. I keep asking what you think, but what the others think. So
I'm going out in a few minutes to watch the lunar eclipse because
yes,
that's my way out. Because things here are so difficult, and I don't think anyone has a single answer. So we get a sense of perspective. Very good to look and see that little planet Earth and really how insignificant all of this is. It's an escape, but thank good. I'm very happy there's a lunar eclipse tonight. Puts things into proportion.
you know, I can add to this in kind of a trivial way, or maybe not a trivial way. In the Lord of the Rings, whatever the hero's name is, Frodo, many times in the course of the movies, of the trilogy, he says, I don't want to be here and I don't want to be doing this thing. I don't like where I am. And Gandalf says to him, well, you may not like it, but you have to do it. Okay? And I feel like I'm a part of history. I'm living day to day, minute to minute history, and I don't like it. I would like to live a calm life. I would like to devote myself more to literary pursuits and friends and enjoying nature and stuff. And I haven't been given that, and neither has anybody else. I think not a single soul in Israel. And we may not like what we've got, but we just have to do it, and we have to do it the best we can. And that's it. So
Which is what is the best you can?
everybody has a different definition of that.
Uh-huh.
You know, I could tell you what mine is, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The most important thing is that we don't just give up and let things swallow us.
well,
It's also mildly important that we don't get into an hour-long argument.
Yeah, you know,
is.
like it's not necessary for me to start talking about my politics or anybody else, you know. But this pervasive feeling that that it's different. Why is it different? Because we are living minute to minute history. That's how I feel.
Just it's not the
Well,
history.
I
that
am living
troubles
in
me.
I am living in minute to minute history.
You are. I do know what's going on in the States.
Yeah,
I don't
and
envy you at all. No, no,
it's
no,
horrifying.
no. It's
It's
very
horrifying.
difficult. I know.
Mm.
I think the difference, though, and I'm also an American and I live in Israel 75 to 90% of the time. And as I mentioned, I'm here in the US now, and all the people I know are more or less opposed and horrified by all the things happening in the United States, the Department of War and the arrest of the migrants,
Yeah.
etc. So people here are really upset, and that I know, but it's on a different scale. It's on a different scale to what we face in Israel. I think that now in Israel, whatever our politics are, and you could probably guess mine, it's an existential threat. It's an existential threat to ourselves personally, to our children, and even more than not in parallel to an existential threat, it's a threat to the ethos that we believe in the country. The country is not the country that we thought it was. And how do we deal with that country now? How do we support a country that isn't the country? Isn't, that's how I feel. I don't want to get any more specific, but it just tears you apart. And as much as it's really unpleasant here, and there's lots of, you can't believe the headlines when you read these things, they send the National Guard into Chicago or I don't know what, it's not the same.
No.
It's also bad. It's also dangerous here, but it's it's so relaxing not to be walking down any street in Israel now. Just walking down the street is so tense. Not personally, you don't think you'll be shot in the back, but it's very difficult.
Even
Uh,
that.
I would just say, Helen, that I think increasingly the experience of Jews in the diaspora and the experience of those who live in Israel, they're very, very different experiences. And it's extremely difficult, I think even impossible, for us to fully understand the other because of what you're hinting at. But I would also say that increasingly, as far as Canada is concerned, it's not a country I recognize anymore. It's absolutely not, which is just astounding to me. Because it's not just the resurgence of all of this horror here, but it's the absence, it's the abandonment of the core values of this country.
That's what Helen said.
Or
Yeah,
maybe
essentially.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. There's that
Different
parallel.
place, but the same
There's that
thing.
parallel. Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Well,
that's what I'm trying to say. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm a Canadian as well as an Israeli and American. I lived in Canada.
I'm sorry, who's speaking? Oh, Asher.
I'm a Canadian.
Ah.
What upsets me is that I grew up in an illusion, because all this that is coming out now
exactly
was not present years ago. It was always present, but it wasn't coming out. And the fact that I think it's Helen said that this is the ethos is so different. So I have been brokenhearted both about my Canadian past and about my Israeli present and future.
Exactly, Asher. That's exactly right.
No, her name is Ricky, actually. Asher is her husband's name.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know you. Okay.
No.
Okay, Ricky.
I didn't even notice. Yeah, I don't have a mustache.
No, I mean, it could be a woman's name. Sorry, I had no idea.
This could be the perfect way to end a Jewish conversation with a universal kvetch. It's very, our subject and our mood is very sad.
There's
So
one big loud oi.
A big loud oi. I think we can all do that together.
Sad but so uplifting. It's a wonderful
like
voice
that one.
that have spoken. What we've read tonight has really been amazing. And I just want to thank you. And I'm going out to see the eclipse.
Well,
Yes.
Thank you, Ricky, for giving the conclusion, and thank you to you all for coming. I have a feeling that I messed up somewhere because there were a lot of people who signed up and begged to make sure that they were accepted and are not here. But I will record, because it's recorded with all of the sound things, my telephone ringing and all that, it's all going to be on YouTube. And I hope to see you all again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, writers.
Wonderful.
It was great.
Thank you, listeners,
Thank you, everybody.
What of?
participants.
You want to end with the oi?
Laila tov.
Thanks.
Okay, Ron.
Laila tov.
Laila tov. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Right. Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Till next time.